Good day, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Burgundy Brigade podcast. I am your host, Kevin Goff. You can find me on Twitter at BRG Brigade Kevin. Joined, as usual, by my good friend and co-host at Avalangelist, Aaron Music. Aaron, how you doing, sir?
Oh, the Stanley Cup season capped off in a win. It was great.
Capped off. Well played. Well played. I don't. We may have the first summer in a while where only one player on the team gets to spend any time with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, because Alexander Ovechkin is the older child that gets a present and is told it's for the entire family, and he just ignores that and proceeds to play with the present and not let anyone else.
It's just his from then on. Yeah, it's watching his celebration continue over and over again throughout Twitter has been pretty entertaining. I was just watching a video of him swimming in a fountain with about 60 what I assume are strangers. But I mean, I guess I don't know, but he's just, that man has been going on quite the tear. And who can blame him, honestly? Who can blame him? That was, I mean, that amazing moment watching Ovi get to lift the cup for the first time, and he has not put it down since.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Alrighty, so I mean, that just touching on that. Obviously, the Capitals win the Stanley Cup. They after game one? I mean, they just imposed their will, and we hadn't seen anybody be able to do that to Las Vegas all playoffs. So it was pretty impressive to watch the Capitals just decide, we're good. We'll go ahead and just take this now. And they came together all over the place. They were getting scoring throughout the lineup. The defense was suffocating. Holtby was good when he needed to be, and man, what a performance.
And Devontae Smith-Pelly. Let's give
my
that
God.
Some recognition.
That goal in the last game there that he scored, I stopped it and rewatched it about 5 different times, and I ran out of the room and brought my wife into the room and kids just to show them that, knowing that they don't appreciate it quite as much as I do, but that's okay. But even they were just sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, wow!" Because the way he just kicked that, a tumbling, bouncing puck straight up. It was an unbelievable goal. Unbelievable goal. Talk about another guy who's probably gonna. He's unrestricted this year. Yes.
I believe so. He's going to be that unrestricted free agent that gets paid after a cup run.
I mean, him and John Carlson both, but yeah, I mean, he's probably
John
not going to get ridiculous
is at least
money.
More deserving of it. Smith-Pelly had a gigantic playoff out of nowhere.
Absolutely, yeah,
and it's going to get paid off it, and someone's probably going to regret it.
Probably, I agree with you there. But we digressed a little bit. So obviously, congratulations to the Capitals and all the Capital fans that have been waiting a long time, suffering through so many disappointments, especially in the last 10 years. To finally get that Stanley Cup, that was a pretty awesome moment for you guys. So way to go! But going back on to where we've been starting with these last podcasts, we're going to continue reviewing draft classes for the Colorado Avalanche as we move into the 2018 NHL entry draft, which is just a couple of weeks away, out in Dallas. Last time we touched on the 2015 draft, so this time, going in chronological order, naturally, we will be hitting on the 2016 NHL draft class for the Colorado Avalanche. Now, again, the Avalanche, they did not have all 7 picks in this particular draft. They had 6 picks. They were without a 4th-round selection. I forget why exactly in that instance, but it probably had something to do with some. It had something to do with a deadline trade that.
Sean Mathias.
Was it Sean Mathias? Yeah, I wanted to say it, but I didn't go that way.
I did my homework.
You did. Well done. Well done. So they had to do there was the Sean Matthias trade there, which actually was not. Matthias played well for the Avs down the stretch at that time, and then he went and signed up in Winnipeg because he wanted to play in Canada. So that left the Avalanche with a 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th round pick. They kept all of those in the draft, didn't do any moving around, and their draft class was as follows. Started off with one Tyson Jost, who at the time had just played with the Penticton V's in the BC Hockey League. We all knew he was a North Dakota commit at the time, and he absolutely destroyed the BCHL that year. He had 104 points in 48 games, 42 goals and 62 assists in 48 games. So
he was playing a video game.
Yeah, he was having video game numbers, and it was kind of we didn't really know a lot of what to expect. Obviously, we knew he was college bound because the Canadian kids only tend to play in those particular leagues, like the BC Hockey League, or as we found out with Cale Makar as well, it was Alberta, yes, for him. If they're planning on attending college, because if you're in that level and you're planning on staying in Canada, you're playing in the CHL. So Tyson Jost then went to North Dakota for his freshman year. Had a very solid year. Was a point per game, 35 points in 33 games. Did not get a national championship that year, and joined the Avalanche immediately after, where he played the final 6 games of the season with the Avs and had 1 goal. Looked pretty promising. And
1 goal in front of his grandfather.
Yep. Papa Jost, as everybody. I mean, that guy. Everybody loves Grandpa Jost.
Mm-hmm.
And this past season had kind of a tough season for him. He was injured early. It took him a little bit of time to get back into things. Finally, kind of got into the swing of things. But never really got his scoring touch going. It was kind of a tough year for him. I would say there was things where you saw that there was definitely some growth, but the numbers just weren't there for him.
Yeah, it was a developmental year, just plain and simple.
Yep. I mean, I was looking around with him. His most common line mates was some combination of Andrighetto, Comfer, and Kerfoot.
Which I don't mind. Those are good line mates.
I don't mind as much if Comfer's in the mix, because Comfer at least has a little bit more size. If it's him with Kerfoot and Ghetto, that's a bunch of small guys on a line.
Yeah, I like him with Andrighetto, though. They have a nice chemistry.
Yeah, they do, definitely. And he averaged a little less than 15 minutes of ice per game, and 11:48 of that ice time generally was even strength. So, on the plus side with Jost, he did also, towards the end of the year, he was moved into the top power play unit, where he was kind of that guy in the very, very middle of the zone, in the middle of the penalty kill box. Kind of that pivot guy who either moves it out to the corner or back up top or down low to try to clean up the mess in front of the net. And he did. It took him a little bit of time to adjust, and I think especially when he was first there, he was very, I got to pass to these guys most of the time, and then eventually learned it was okay to start shooting a bit. Again, you hope that more of the numbers start coming from that, but it just wasn't there this year.
In developmental year, as hurt as he was, and with Kerfoot eating away at his minutes, he just had to carve out his own role. I'll be interested to see how he comes into camp next year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of one of the questions that's going to end up with Jost is he going to be a center? Or is he eventually going to be a winger?
I think he tops out as the second center, but you can push him to the wing if you have a really talented winger there.
Because when he was playing with Comfort, he was playing center. Wing, yeah. I mean, he certainly has an immense amount of skill, Jost does. The guy, he can skate really well. I think the area where his skating is the best is where he's where he's down low, using his edges, moving quickly, trying to get to the front of the net. He's very elusive, and I mean, really, when he has the puck down low, he does. And people always for years now. People are not going to like hearing the name, but I kind of see a lot of Matt Duchene in him when he's down low down there.
I still see. I saw it when he was drafted. I see Zach Parise. He's strong on the puck, but he also escapes when he doesn't have it, so that he'll appear at the right time for an easy goal.
Yeah, I think he uses his edges a lot more than Parise does. Parise is what's the right word to describe Parise? Parise has a bit more of a wrecking ball attitude to him. In my view, he's not as much about the move off your player and try to and I'm really having a hard time thinking of what to say right there. He just doesn't do quite the same type of skate moves that Jost does. Jost tends to it really, I think, looks a lot more like Duchene did down low, where he keeps his body away from it. The guy gets to him, he spins off him, looks for passes out of there, and also drives to the net from that area.
I just disagree. I don't think he has the repertoire of moves that Duchene does. I think he's more of just
not yet.
Well, even when Duchene started, he had those moves. And I feel like he's more of he just likes to go in there, cause a disruption, get the puck, and then move it around. I don't feel like, especially when he's going strong, he's the guy that wants to hold on to the puck very long.
Yeah, I don't know. Parise just doesn't jive in my mind. Maybe it's because I just don't like him, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly why you don't like him. So I've run into this before. People don't like him, so they don't want to see it.
No, I don't.
But that's really just where I feel.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see the same sort of game, and I also don't see the same strength on the puck that Parise has. One of the big things I noticed a lot about Jost's game this year is he was forced off pucks very frequently and far too easily a lot of the time, and some of that's just age, and he'll grow into his frame and whatnot. But he was not as. And I saw that more earlier in the year, and as the year went, you saw him kind of going, okay, I can't let too much contact be made, so I have to be a bit more elusive in the corners.
And let's be honest, he's 19. He's 5'11".
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not going to... Those skills aren't going to fully be realized until he's probably 21, 22.
Yeah, no, I agree. And
so
that's
I think
probably...
it's unfair to say that he got knocked off the puck way too easily when he's 19 and most NHL players are 20, 21, 22.
Sure.
At least when they break in.
Sure. No, from that point, I think that's where, like I was saying, he kind of did see that, see what was happening, and made some sort of adjustments. Whereas Parise is not; he is much less shy of going ahead, and he invites the contact, like you say. He doesn't mind it if a guy comes in and gets him down low because he knows how to go from that moment.
He'll initiate the contact so he can disengage.
Exactly. He knows how to go that moment from contact to that moment immediately after the contact, where there's very few people better at getting away than Zach Parise is.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Jost is a guy that we obviously you want to see what his progress is going to look like next year. It'll be a good year for him. It'll be his second full year as a pro, and yeah. Hopefully, you want to see the progress. You want to see the skating continue to improve. You want to see the strength get there. I want to see him shoot more.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see him have the puck on his stick less, but shoot more. Get to places where he sets up and then just bang, shoot, bang, shoot, bang, shoot. I feel like, especially with his shot, a one-timer would be really, really deadly from him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that was an interesting selection at the time because there were still a lot of very interesting guys to look at. at 10th overall that really you wouldn't necessarily have blamed the Avalanche for taking. And this, of course, was also Patrick Waugh's last draft with the team.
Mm-hmm. I'm still surprised they didn't take Logan Brown.
Yeah, I'm stunned that they didn't end up with Logan Brown.
Which is a pretty clear sign that the Avs and Watt, it's the first sign that they were going to go in a different direction, I think.
Because, Logan Brown had that huge frame and, 6'6" and all that, and was just dying to. You could tell Waugh would that. You just looked at him and went, "Oh, that's a Patty Waugh guy."
Mm-hmm. I think he was even in the Quebec League, so you're like, okay.
Yeah, he was an OHL guy. He was Windsor Spitfires.
Oh, OHL?
Yeah.
Those two, there's so much crossover. I lose track of them
for sure. And he got 4 games with Ottawa this year, and then they sent him down. He ended up with Kitchener this year at the end of the season. Had 48 points in 30 some odd games. Still pretty good numbers, but not a full year. Did well in the playoffs for Kitchener. 27 points in 19 games there. And there's still a lot of time left on him, obviously, but it was definitely kind of a surprise to see the Avs not go with him. I was really high on Mikey McLeod that year. There were guys like the Bruins got Charlie McAvoy a few picks later. Jacob Chychrun was still on the board. There were a lot of people really high on him as a D-man. I was a little surprised. I'm not gonna lie with the Jost pick. I don't think it's a bad pick. There's still there's still a long way to go to see what he's got.
Yeah, I was surprised, but not altogether unpleased.
I think it's perfect.
I didn't get I actually remember I wasn't actually really awake for the draft because I was in Prague at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time of the draft, so it's a little harder to get all that taken care of when you're all the way out across the globe. I don't know how Avalanche does it.
Yeah. Oh, seriously, those guys they just must be on a different sleep schedule than everybody else in their country.
I thought you were going to say they must be on a different time zone. I'm like, yeah.
Captain Obvious coming to the podcast. All right, so next pick for the Avalanche, they got their own second round pick back from the Sharks as the second half of what was the Ryan O'Reilly deal when San Jose.
Yeah.
What's that?
Erase the Brad Stewart trade. What?
Yes, I know, right? That was a very happy move. The Avs ended up selecting Cam Morrison. He played that season in the USHL with the Youngstown Phantoms. Had a really good year with them, and has spent the last 2 years with the University of Notre Dame. Excuse me. Freshman year, Morrison had a very promising season. 24 points in the 30-some-odd game college season. 12 goals, 12 assists. Second year was almost identical points-wise. He had 23 points this past season. 8 goals, 15 assists. So from a points perspective, goals perspective especially, it's a little discouraging not to see him progress a bit more.
But his team did go further.
His team did go further, and as the team was going further, Morrison was a big part of those things, the goals that moved them along. He was a part of some pretty huge clutch goals. He scored in the Big Ten championship game. He scored the game-winning goal in that in overtime. He also had the primary assist on the goal that sent the Irish to the national championship game. Scored it with 5 seconds left. Was just diving into the middle of was screaming down the left wing, going towards the net, shoveled the puck right out, and his teammate buried it, and the Irish went to the national championship game. And that was, just a huge goal. Morrison, one of the things I liked about him when he's drafted, all his scouting reports and all the things you look at him says high engine, and you see that every time he's out there. He is skating hard, and he is moving and working. Does a lot of things that if and when he gets to the Avs, fans will really, really like. He's a power forward. He goes to
really hard worker.
Really, really hard worker. He goes to the dirty areas, isn't afraid of contact. He's used in a lot of situations. You can see him top out as some sort of a second, third liner that gets some second unit power play time to go muck it up in front of the net a little bit there. And yeah, so I mean, obviously there wasn't as you look at the progression is from a number standpoint, and you kind of go, oh, that's not great. But then of course you think, well, now he's coming into his upperclassman years where he's going to be one of the guys. So you're going to really get to see what the opportunity that he gets and how he takes advantage of that going forward here.
And I expect he'll take a full 4 years at Notre Dame, maybe a year in the AHL, possibly 2. That's when you're starting to see him. So 4 years until you're at least wanting to see him crack an NHL roster. He's a ways away.
Yeah,
but I like what I've seen with him. I like the growth I saw from him as well.
Yeah, I mean, you never look at a guy who goes and makes his living in front of the net like Morrison does and think, nah, we don't need a guy like that. You love players like that who can make stuff happen in close and who can just create the havoc that you really, really need. That's the type of guy that you really want on secondary lines that just go out there and make it miserable for the other team. And he does that. He absolutely does that. I'm with you. I kind of think he's probably going to spend the majority. He definitely won't be coming out after this season. After the season he had this year, he's definitely going to be back in Notre Dame again, coming up here in 18-19. Depending on how he performs this season, will probably decide whether he goes the full year or actually does come out. I expect, like you do, that he will probably spend 4 full years there. You hope that after he spends 4 full years, he'd be ready to come into the NHL right away, because then he's 22.
The reason that I say he'll start in the AHL is because of the depth of the Avs. There will be people in front of him for his spots that he'll have to either fight his way through or wait for their contracts to come up and then take the spot.
Which by the time he's out of college, again, he's 22. At that point, if he's not at the point at a spot where guys who are younger than him are not below him, then it may be time to see. I don't know that the Avs would. I don't know that. Not even so much that the Avs wouldn't be interested in keeping him in there, but I mean this is different than this. College is a different bird than the CHL. You can't sign him to a ELC and send him back to his college team. If he signs with you, he's in your system. You can't have a pro contract and play college hockey. So he may look at the depth of the Avs system and say, I don't have an opportunity here. I would prefer to go somewhere else and do that college free agent route. And if that's what ends up happening for him, it's hard to blame him. You want a guy, you're a hockey player, you want an opportunity to play.
And I get that. I just think they're going to slowly roll him through. Sure.
There's no need to rush him. Absolutely, there's no need to rush him. If you do sign him coming out of college, though, it's just you
know what? The Avs may just sign him after the 3rd year just to avoid that and have him spend a year in the AHL and have that be his development.
Yeah, I could see that being a really smart plan, because just like you said, then you avoid that whole senior year. I want to go to the NHL. But I don't have an opportunity to do it here thing. You can sign a guy after his junior year and say, we want to take it slow with you, develop you, and get you to a point where you're ready for the NHL. And that makes a lot more sense. That would make a lot more sense if that's where you expect him to go. Cool.
Yeah, I like the pick though. The next pick is the one I'm still cautious about.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. The next pick, so we'll move right on there. Yeah, again, I was with you. I did after doing the homework on him and figuring out who he was. I absolutely loved the Morrison pick. There's a lot of upside for him, still a lot of time to see where he goes to. So, moving on to the 3rd round, the Avalanche selected out of the Western Hockey League defenseman Josh Anderson, which was a bit of a head scratcher. Not something.
Still scratching my head.
Yeah, not even so much because that they picked a defenseman, but because they picked that defenseman in that round. He had recently come off a very, very serious spinal injury, and probably still would have been available later in the draft.
Though, to be fair, he probably wouldn't have been available until the fifth round, which was the next time the Avs picked.
True enough.
At least that I can see their logic being that.
Yes, I could see that being the thought process as well. But then again, you look at you just didn't. This is one that you look at and you go, this was a total Patrick Waugh pick. In my mind, because he's that big old school stay at home defenseman. His offense is not a thing. He doesn't really contribute. I mean, everybody gets a few numbers here and there, but that's definitely not what he's there. More than anything, it just kind of seemed like picking a guy who was definitely a contrast to the style of players that you had been picking to this point. And, to a certain extent, I kind of get that. We know that there had been some criticism going towards the Avs being too towards certain types of players. They got too engaged in going for like the small skilled guys or the big hulking guys, and never and they always were like all in on one of them and never were trying to do both at the same time. And they
didn't really diversify, did they?
Yeah, exactly. This just kind of seemed one of those. Well, he seems like he could be a big contrast, a big guy, a big thumper. It just didn't really make. I haven't been crazy about this pick. Now, granted, he has played a couple full seasons since that spinal injury, so more or less the whole durability, will he be able to come back and play question has been put to bed. He was traded this past season from his team from Moose Jaw. Was he Moose Jaw? No, he was Prince George. My bad. He was with Prince George when he was drafted. He got traded to Swift Current this year and did play in the Memorial Cup. He had a total of 3 goals and 11 assists in 54 games, 2 assists in the 26 postseason games he played this season. And again, that's basically what you're going to get a stat line from him on anytime, anywhere. He's there to hit, block shots, and make life miserable for guys.
However, you still want him to put up more points in the CHL.
Yeah, of course you would.
Doug Siemens put up nearly a point per game pace in the WHL. He was on the wing. He was paired with Stephen Elliott, but still,
right?
You still want more points.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You would absolutely want that. Granted, that's not maybe the hugest expectation when you get into the third round of the draft, because again, Duncan Siemens was a 11th overall pick.
My point is that if you're going to take a defensive defenseman, even if he's in no matter which league he's coming from, you want him to put up more production than a point every 10 games or so?
Yeah, at maybe more than that, absolutely. Just pro upside, I don't really see much of a pro upside. He has signed an entry-level contract with the Avalanche, so I don't know that he'll even necessarily stick in the AHL. I don't really.
I feel like because I saw him in camp last year.
Yeah,
and he was super slow.
Yeah,
actually, I saw him when they drafted him, and saw him the year after, and he was just super slow on both occasions.
Yeah, it's just. I do not see an NHL upside for him at all. It feels like kind of a whiff of a pick to me. I mean, sure, it's a late round pick that signed a contract and is in your system, and I guess it gives you some sort of organizational depth. But I would not expect Anderson to be a guy who makes the NHL. And if he is a guy that makes the NHL, then you should be worried because your team has about 13 injured defensemen.
Hopefully, maybe he just turns it on at the next level.
It's possible. It's possible. Maybe he comes in and sees guys a little bit bigger and go, "Ooh, I can crush you too." And I don't know. I don't know.
It's like a horse that you give him new horseshoes, and suddenly he's, I don't know, a top 6 defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah, I guess just this type of defenseman is not around so much anymore. There's not these guys who are just big hulking guys who just sit in front of their net and who are and maybe that's unfair to say of him, but these big hulking guys whose primary job is to stay back in their defensive zone and crush people, who don't really contribute offensively, who there's just at the NHL.
The closest you're going to get is Zadorov, and on the other side of Zadorov, you get Rasmus Ristolainen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Ristolainen, I think, is a product of Buffalo failing him, but
yeah, probably a little bit of both, a little bit of being who he is, and a little bit of being in a bad system. So. Yeah, so, that one was definitely one that I haven't been as huge a fan on. And as you said, we'll see how he does when he comes into camp and as he plays in his first pro season this upcoming season. Personally, I'm not expecting much from him.
Yeah, my expectations start at 0 and work their way down.
Alrighty. So then we move forward. The Avalanche do not have a 4th-round draft pick in 2016, so they move on to round 5, where they select goaltender Adam Werner out of Sweden, the Swedish junior leagues, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And, this guy, it's so hard to talk about goalie prospects, especially ones that are out in the middle of Europe, playing in Swedish junior leagues, where you basically get no opportunity to see them. But then again, at the same time, goaltending is such a crazy thing as it is. I mean, the whole story with Pekka Rinne is very well documented, where he was playing in the Finnish league, but was the backup for his team, and the starter never took a night off. So the Nashville, when they were scouting him, they had to watch him in practice, and they drafted him based off of his practices. And look at how he turned out. May very well win the Vezina Trophy this year.
Yeah. Yet he's still not the best goaltender on that team.
Hot take.
Fight me. I don't care. He's not the best goaltender on that team.
Okay. Werner, when you look at him, immediately the first thing you see is, holy cow, he's big.
Yeah.
He's kind of that new breed of goalie where now you're not only selecting the goalies that can move, but you're selecting these immense goalies that can move. He's 6'5", 195, so he's not too. He's big, but he's not like so big that he's going to be too bulky and slow. He's incredibly athletic. I remember I saw him at the prospect camp when right after he was drafted, and man, is he athletic. He can't. His legs are very, very fast. He's incredibly raw, obviously, and he showed some positive steps forward, at least from his numbers perspectives. Last couple years with his Swedish team. This last year, he played in the Swedish 1 League, which I'm fairly certain is basically Sweden's AHL. 2.34 goals against average. Had, what's his win-loss? 26 and 21. .914 save percentage. So respectable save percentage. Pretty solid goals against average. Was a regular on the team, which was nice to see this time for him this year. It seems that that he should be moving up to his major league team next year.
Well, he signed an amateur tryout offer with San Antonio.
Yes, he came. They loaned him over for a few games at the end of the season in the AHL, and he was kind of meh. It wasn't bad. He was 2-1, won 2 games, so good for him there. His goals against were 3.3, and his save percentage was below 9. It was below the 90%. So
I'm sure it was all the Blues prospects' fault.
Of course, absolutely, 100%. And again, you sometimes on small sample sizes like that, it's really hard to tell how much is him and how much is the team in front of him, because obviously San Antonio has not been good for a long time, partially because the Avalanche prospect pool has not been very good for a long time. But, he got a few wins in there, and by all accounts, I remember talking with a few people who said he came in and, he let in some tough ones early, but battled and kind of settled in and managed to sort of find a certain place where he felt comfortable. So that was good. That's good. He will likely. He still hasn't. Obviously, he signed the ATO, so he has not signed an ELC yet. I would not expect him in Loveland next year. I almost said San Antonio again. Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't expect him in San Antonio either.
Yeah.
Unless the Blues saw something they really loved.
Unless something weird happens, right? I definitely expect that he will be. We'll be learning more about him as he continues to progress through the Swedish league, and he's still several years out.
And I'm okay with that. How long do they have his rights?
See, man, goalies themselves are longer, and then the fact that he's a European goalie also, I think, gives him longer.
Because I know the Avs let a goal. Oh, I think it was. I know they let the rights expire to a goaltender they had.
Maximilian Piepak or whatever his name was.
Oh, Pashpak?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one I was thinking of.
That was the one.
That's the one I was thinking of, but,
Yeah, he's. So I don't have the. I used to know that right off the top of my head, and I have not looked at that recently. So, but they do have a. They have more than the normal. Like you have 2 years for your standard CHL skater to sign him to an ELC, and then they can re-enter the draft, as we saw with Connor Blakely. Goaltenders, I want to say that if it's a CHL goalie, I think you get 4 years. I think. I don't remember. The European players you get longer with. So I'd have to look at that again. So we will have to, or perhaps someone listening will be able to correct us and let us know on Twitter as they are listening. So, but they don't have to rush him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was mixing Pashpak up with Werner.
Yeah, but again, you look at the guy's size and how athletic he is, and you sit there and you think, again, if he continues to develop. And goaltending being as tough to predict as it is, you could have something real good in him. I want to be able to see more of him, but he's just in a situation where it's really, really hard to see any games that he plays.
Yeah, you really just hope that he can come over and you can see he can come over and they broadcast an AHL game and you get to see him. And yeah,
that would be nice. So a massive incomplete on that one because you just don't know. Next, the Avalanche go to the 6th round and select Nathan Klerman, a defenseman out of Culver Academy. He was also a Notre Dame commit at the time, has not gotten to Notre Dame yet. Spent the last season in the USHL with 3 different teams. Ended the season with 1 goal and 13 assists. Not a bad skater, but there's still definitely a lot of room for growth for that. I remember before I moved, I'd seen his original prospect camp, and then I saw his second prospect camp as well. And he had made some good strides forward as far as his skating was concerned. But unintentional. But hey, you want to keep seeing improvement on the edges and the footwork, especially for defensemen as he keeps going in. He's got good size. A guy that can move and play a 2-way game, but he's still got good size. He's 6'2". He's supposed to be. Go ahead.
With him, it's going to be all about skating, and I have no idea what's happening with him. I've lost track of it over the time. Yeah,
it's hard to have follow because again, and talk about another league that gets really no play in the United States. The USHL that their development league there outside of that a lot of college players go to when their college seasons are done. You have a really hard time following them. So I mean, no, his numbers are not great for that league, and again, he's played for 3 teams in the span of a year, so it's hard to put too much merit in it because there's been so little consistency for him. Then you look at Notre Dame and go, he is supposed to be going into Notre Dame this year, but I went and looked at Notre Dame's roster. They have 5 returning players on defense, and he's one of 5 incoming freshmen or incoming first year players. So there's going to be a lot of competition for time there, and he may not get, depending on how he performs, he may not get a great opportunity to play.
Who knows? This will be the make or break year as far as continuing development. If he strikes out again, just cut ties.
Yeah, and again, since he's a college player, they don't have to worry about him until he decides he's turning pro. So he's obviously not going to be playing 1 year in college and calling it done. So there's time on him yet. But you want to see him get an opportunity to play. And if you can't get it in Notre Dame, which would be unfortunate because Notre Dame plays a good schedule, get some decent exposure, too. They're one of the few NCAA programs in the States that gets regular national television time because they're Notre Dame. You want to see him get the opportunity. So, I mean, I also wouldn't be, depending on how things go there, I also wouldn't be terribly surprised if he transferred somewhere.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of a dart throw.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, it was one of those. He was also really hard to find film on because, again, where do you find film for high schools?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the names of all these 6th-round picks, and I'm the only one that strikes me. He went one pick later, Jesper Bratt. Who was out of Sweden, drafted by New Jersey, and now is playing for the Devils.
Yeah. It's a good pick there from them, then. So, again, there's a lot. Whereas the 15 draft, we were able to really kind of see where a lot of these guys are moving. There's some pretty natural progression, yet there's still a lot to figure out with this 16 draft. Klerman is another
2 years
one.
after a draft is really hard to evaluate stuff.
For sure.
You can evaluate rounds 1 and 2 because you've seen the development of those two guys, 2 rounds.
Yeah.
So you'll see it more, but beyond that, you're basically going, well, they're still playing hockey.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, though, the 7th round pick might be one of the guys who has had the best progression since then. The Avalanche selected Travis Barron, 7th round, 191st overall out of the Ottawa 67s. Another guy who very recently was, during this past season, signed his entry-level contract. Barron could be one of the Avs' best 7th-round picks in a long, long time. Was the 67's captain for the past couple of seasons. Was voted the best hitter and hardest worker in the OHL by the OHL coaches. I mean, that's saying something right there.
Yeah.
His numbers were very solid.
It's really helpful for the Avs being able to sign him because their depth chart was rather barren in the AHL.
Yes. He had a real solid year this year, too. Had 57 points in 67 games. 21 goals, was 36 assists, all career highs for him. He also had 91 penalty minutes. He had 5 goals in 5 playoff... 5 points in 5 playoff games. Before the 67s were ousted. He's got good size, 6'1", 203. He plays a gritty game. He's got a really solid two-way game. The Avs have a really good pick in him this year. He works hard. He's very versatile. He can play power play. He can play penalty kill. He can play offensive zone starts. When you need a goal. He can play defensive zone starts when you're protecting a lead. He's got a lot of really good things going to his game that you look at him and you go, man, this could be one of those Swiss Army knife style players who just you need someone to go do something because someone is injured or is in the penalty box. You got the guy that you put out.
And he's the ultimate Hail Mary pick, but when you draft a hard worker with high character, this is what happens.
Yeah. It's really, really looking like a very good pick right now. Like I said, he's signed.
I love that pick, and I actually liked it at the time.
Yeah. As soon as I looked at him, again, I agree. I would look at this guy's he can play. Especially
after what I deemed 3 misses, they really hit it.
They absolutely did. And, I mean, that's 2 out of the last 3 years where the Avs had a 7th-round pick that they signed in into their system. They had Barron. Then the year before, we talked last time with Gustav Olhaver, who was kind of swinging in the dark, didn't do anything, never signed his contract. And then before that, in 2014, they selected Julian Nantel, who in the 7th round, who signed a contract, had a really good final years in his Quebec Major Junior Hockey League career, and is playing in the Avs system right now. Is going to be playing for the Kelly Cup tonight in the ECHL final.
Yeah, he's actually playing for the Kelly Cup right now.
Yep, as we are speaking, perhaps not while you're listening. So the Avs have done some pretty decent things with their late round picks in the last couple of years, and Barron is another great example. I mean that has been an excellent pick. And yeah, Barron's there playing for the ECHL title now too, isn't he?
And this draft, it's a hit or miss, but I think the hits will outweigh the misses.
The big there's still a lot obviously to figure out in this draft. Perhaps the thing that will the two that will make the biggest difference. I don't even think it's going to be Jost that might make the biggest difference in this draft. I think the biggest things are what ends up happening with Cam Morrison, and what ends up happening with Adam Werner.
The Avs are going to live and die on Jost for a while as a second lane center.
Yeah.
So by the fact of that, it's going to make that one bigger.
I don't disagree. I just speaking specifically for this draft class, which will make it. Jost is like you said, he'll be productive. You expect that out of your first round guy. You expect your first round draft pick, especially a top 10 pick, to be able to come in and make a difference for your team. So they're going to be giving him that opportunity for sure. If you make the drafts really solid. Based on how everybody else kind of comes in and contributes, you really hope that your second round player gets in there because that's still pretty high up in the list of guys that are being drafted. And then if you're getting good contributions from your late round, your 5th, 6th, 7th round guys, then that's a damn good draft.
Well, it's unfortunate for Cam Morrison because he's not going to be the best second round draft pick from that draft on the Avs roster. Waiting for it.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Samuel Girard.
Oh, that's true. Samuel Girard.
Drafted 47.
That's very true.
So the Avs got a second-round pick from the 2014 draft. They got a second-round pick from the 2016 draft. They're going to get a first-round pick from the 2017 draft, in addition to a first-round pick in 2019. That could be a lottery pick. A second-round pick this year from Nashville, and a third-round pick from Ottawa.
They got a lot of high-round picks coming up for them this year and next year, and that's really good.
That just illustrates exactly what the Avs were doing with the trade and what they're building, what they're doing.
So overall, what are your obviously it's hard to. If we're kind of work on tying this particular draft up. What are your kind of final thoughts on this one?
Weaker than the previous year, but still enough hits to make it work. And the Travis Barron might be the best late round pick they've had ever.
Yeah, I think. Just like you say, it's definitely not as consistent of a draft as the previous year. 15, they have. I mean, we talked about it. They got a lot of really good talent in it that is moving into the system right now. And with 16, there's been a lot of. It's kind of highs and lows there. Jost obviously is a high. Morrison, you're hoping ends up being a high. Anderson has signed a contract, but I don't think we really expect him to ever wear.
Anderson signing the contract is the high, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. It's great. I guess it's great that he's coming into your system, but we don't really expect anything. Yeah,
it's not as bad. I think their worst draft is 2014. You can see a clear fault line between Rick Prassey and Alan Heppel.
Yeah,
like Rick Prassey bunted that that 2014 draft, and the Avs just moved on from them.
That was such a bad draft.
It's like, yep, we're done here.
Bad draft. Yeah, Werner again. There's so much unknown, but he's going to be one kind of that. For me, he's the most interesting guy to watch because if he hits and comes in and becomes a legitimate goaltender in your system, that's a hell of a pick.
Yeah, I just don't expect it'll happen.
You obviously don't expect that at the 5th round, but there's just so much unknown with goaltending as a whole. There's a lot that could happen. Klerman again, you just don't know. 6th round pick, so it's hard to say. You just kind of. My big worry for him this year is just how much ice he's going to get. I hope that he's in a situation with Notre Dame where he gets regular ice time. With
Notre Dame, he's going to have to earn it. That's how it always is.
For sure. And then Barron, of course. Barron is I think that's easily their best late round pick in a long, long time. He might be the best pick of the draft just from that's a really savvy draft pick perspective.
Right. I'm going back through 7th round draft picks right now. It's not great.
Yeah, and I mean 7th round draft picks are hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard for them to hit. But
the last one they really got was 2005 in Kyle Comiskey.
Yeah, and if we're going to be honest, Kyle Comiskey was not great.
He had some okay years. 9th round in 2003 was David Jones.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, Comiskey was his big side was always he could skate like crazy. He was basically Matt Hunwick.
Yeah. Know who the best 7th round pick is though in Avalanche history?
Who's that?
Marek Spatos.
Yes, I'm with you there. That was an excellent pick.
Radim Verbata was pretty good too.
Spatos got derailed by some injuries, unfortunately, but that guy had skill. If he
could have stayed healthy, he would have been. He might have been one of the more prolific scorers up there with Haydick.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Sammy Paulson was another 7th round draft pick of the Avalanche in '96.
Right above him, Danny Heinold.
Mm-hmm.
Cup champion Danny Heinold.
That's right, Danny Heinold. That's a great. That was a great pick.
Favorite player.
God, he absolutely. That guy was such a fan favorite. You talk about a guy who was just a wrecking ball out there. Oh, loved him.
With a smile on his face.
Yeah.
He might still be one of my favorite Avalanche players of all time.
Yeah.
Based nothing on just the way that he played.
I 100% agree. It's hard. I think it'd be hard for any Avalanche fan to hear the name Dan Heinold and not just have them go, I love that guy.
Yep. And the other team go, F that guy.
Yeah. Because he was a pest. He was such a pest. But he wasn't. Yeah. He wasn't a dirty player. He was a pest, and he annoyed the hell out of you. But he was not going. He wasn't going around like kneeing guys or running anybody.
I still remember my favorite play of him is just when I forget the player he was squared up with, and Heinold twitched his hands, and the other player dropped his gloves. Heinold was skated off, and the other guy got a penalty and scored on the power play.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yep, that was Dan Heinold for you.
I don't think there was a bigger smile than that one.
Yeah. And man, he had that smile that just you're like, oh man, that guy, you smiling like that, you just want to punch him. You just want to punch him.
You do. You want to punch him and then hug him.
Exactly. Like even as an Avalanche fan, I was like, oh, I want to punch you looking at that, but I love it. Because man, loved me some Dan Heinold. Right on. So that was your 2016 draft. A lot of stuff to figure out there. Not a bad draft. Not a great draft yet. We'll still see a little bit as things go off there. Next time we're going to cover the 2017 picks, which again was last season, which put in some very interesting selections. So we've got to do some homework on that before we talk about them. Got anything else to add?
No, nothing else to add. I'll save mine for next week.
Excellent. Well, then we'll go ahead and call it a podcast. If you've got any other comments you wanted to throw our way about any of these guys, I know I got a couple comments about talk as much as you can about Adam Werner for this one. So again, as much as we could talk about him, it's really, really, really difficult for people who live in the United States but that are interested in hockey to see these guys that play in the Swedish
talk
minor leagues.
About as much about him as a blind person can talk about Van Gogh.
Yeah, there you go. I did. Right after the pick, I know I had a brief Twitter conversation with a couple Swedish guys who had direct experience with him. One of them was involved with one of his teams and had coached him, and one was his goalie coach at the time. And I got to chat with them a bit, and they sent me some messages, and I wrote up a thing about it. So I'll look for that on the Brigade website and see if I can't post that in the description. So if you wanted to see what that looked like, you could get that conversation anyways. So we'll go ahead and call it good for today. Next weekend we will cover 2017. Hope you all enjoyed this podcast. You can follow us on iTunes. You can follow us on Podbean. On all kinds of different social areas. You can find us on Twitter at BRG Brigade Kevin and at Avalangelist. Thanks for listening.